The Commission will come to order, and good afternoon to everybody. Welcome to our witnesses and everyone joining us for today's hearing marking 100 years since the start of the Armenian Genocide, one of the most terrible crimes of the 20th century. The Armenian Genocide is the only one of the genocides of the 20th century in which the nation that was decimated by genocide has been subjected to the ongoing outrage of a massive campaign of genocidal denial, openly sustained by state authority. This campaign of genocide denial is a slap in the face to the Armenian people, preventing reconciliation and healing. As Pope Francis said so eloquently at his Mass marking the 100th time period of the genocide, quote, "Concealing or denying evil is like allowing a wound to keep bleeding without bandaging it." In September of 2000, I chaired the first congressional hearing on the Armenian Genocide. It was a 4-hour hearing, and the testimony I heard that day, and many accounts of the atrocities I have read in articles and books over the years, before and since, including the eyewitness account, Ambassador Morgenthau's story, have shocked me deeply. The facts were reported throughout the world as they were happening, corroborated immediately afterwards by survivors and even some perpetrators, and have been amply documented by historians, including in a number of recent books. In 1915, there were about 2 million Armenians living in what was then the Ottoman Empire. They were living in a region that they had inhabited for 2,500 years. By 1923, well over 90% of these Armenians had disappeared. Most of them, as many as 1.5 million, were dead. Some even say the estimates are higher. Most of them, death marched into the desert or shot, and in some cases raped, and other unbelievable cruelties were meted out against men, women, and children. The remainder, the remnant, was forced into exile. When the term genocide was invented in 1944 to describe the systematic destruction of an entire people, its author, Raphael Lemkin, explained the term by saying, quote, "It was the sort of thing Hitler did to the Jews and the Turks did to the Armenians." Close quote. Since the facts are so well established, this is not a hearing only to inquire into the events of 1915. Rather, it's also a hearing in what has happened since, and it's still happening today. Genocidal denial. Sadly, the Turkish government has driven this campaign of denial and has done so over the course of decades, using a variety of means to punish Turkish citizens who dared to acknowledge the crimes committed by the Ottoman government in 1915 and then thereon. The Turkish government has also threatened other countries to keep them from acknowledging the genocide. Ironically, it is only the Turkish government's campaign of denial that obliges other countries to recognize the genocides officially. And the Turkish government underwrites a disinformation campaign to confuse the historical record. It also tries to relativize the Ottoman government's crimes, sometimes by changing the subject to the wartime sufferings of Turks or the crimes committed by individual Armenians. This is in no sense a hearing that's designed to be against Turkey. Rather, I consider it a hearing that supports the Turkish people. Today, many people in Turkey are in the process of freeing themselves from the effects of decades of denialist propaganda by their own government. Many already see through the official denialism, and some oppose it openly, and some have paid a price. I want to support and express my admiration for these people, for their courage, and for their Turkish patriotism. They act sometimes at grave personal risk to themselves for the good of their country and out of love for their country. They are thought leaders, and there are many signs of this. In recent weeks, in the lead up to the 100th anniversary of the genocide, there have been many deeply moving feature stories in the world press about Turks discovering their family's secret Armenian heritage, or seeking to connect with the Armenian aspects of Turkish history, or supporting efforts to rebuild Armenian churches, which were also leveled and decimated, as our witnesses will attest to today. I'd like to insert one of those articles, Remembering the Armenian Genocide by Victor Gaytan, into the hearing record. And without objection, so ordered. No country is immune from evil. We all know that. All governments have been complicit at some point in their history in terrible crimes, and this certainly includes the United States. Remember slavery. It also includes Germany. I want to urge the Turkish government to take the path taken by Germany after World War II, and it was the right one. Germany started with open acknowledgement of the crimes of the Holocaust, and it built from there over the course of decades, establishing relationships with Jewish groups in Israel, in which it demonstrated remorse and commitment to righting its wrongs as far as it could. Now there is a very strong German-Israeli friendship, and today Germany is one of the most respected countries in the world. That path is still open to the Turkish government, and working to put Turkey on it will be the truest, deepest expression of Turkish patriotism. Finally, I must respond to President Obama. On Tuesday, his aides met with the Armenian leaders and made it clear that once again he will not recognize the Armenian genocide. That is to say, he will not use the word genocide. This is in direct contradiction to the promises that he made before becoming president. He said, and I would say very eloquently in 2008, I also share with the Armenian Americans, so many of whom are descended from genocide survivors, a principled commitment to commemorating and ending genocide. That starts with acknowledging the tragic instances of genocide in world history. As a U.S. Senator, I have stood with the Armenian American community in calling for Turkey's acknowledgement of the Armenian genocide. 2 years ago, I criticized the Secretary of State for the firing of U.S. Ambassador to Armenia, John Evans, after he properly used the term genocide, and he's here today, to describe Turkey's slaughter of thousands of Armenians starting in 1915. I shared with Secretary Condoleezza Rice my firmly held conviction that the Armenian genocide is not an allegation, a personal opinion, or a point of view, but rather a widely documented fact supported by an overwhelming body of historical evidence. The facts are undeniable. An official policy that calls on diplomats to distort the historical facts is an untenable policy. As a senator, I strongly support passage of the Armenian Genocide Resolution, and as president, I will recognize the Armenian genocide. These are very eloquent words that should echo today and ought to be expressed today. With Germany and the European Union lining up to do the right thing, our government needs to do likewise. At this point, according to the Congressional Research Service, the EU states listed as having recognized a genocide are France, Germany, Italy, Sweden, Belgium, the Netherlands, Lithuania, Poland, Slovakia, Greece, and Cyprus, and the Holy See. The European Parliament has also referred to the deaths of the Armenians as genocide. The non-EU states that have also taken this important step are Argentina, Canada, Chile, Lebanon, Russia, Switzerland, Uruguay, Vatican City, Venezuela. Sadly, after the President's powerful promise, we need that kind of statement to come very clearly and unambiguously from the United States. As mass atrocities unfold in Syria and Iraq, the U.S. needs the Turkish government to engage constructively with its neighbors. The Turkish government can do much more, do this more effectively after it honestly faces its own past. The President, I think, is missing an opportunity.